The Kumeyaay community Juntas de Neji covers 26,000 acres of rocky, scrubby terrain about an hour south of Tecate. The Mesa Calles family, or Mixcuixcuijas, their Kumeyaay name, has lived here for generations. Norma and Yolanda Mesa Calles and their two other sisters grew up speaking only Kumeyaay in the house with their mother. But with their kids, Spanish began to take over. Yolanda says, my kids got married and left the community, so my grandkids grew up away from here, and their native language is Spanish, not Kumeyaay like us. It's a common pattern in the demise of indigenous languages in Mexico, the U.S., and around the globe.
So out of 6,000 approximate languages that are spoken in the world, only about 100 of them are really safe right now. And those are big languages like Spanish and English and Russian and Chinese.
Linguist Margaret Field has been studying the Kumeyaay language for the past 5 years. She says all but a handful of the 75 to 100 fluent Kumeyaay speakers left live south of the border. And she says that's largely because of differences in education policy.
There's a long history of miserable and unhappy history of American Indian people being forced to go to boarding school where they were their languages were repressed, their languages and cultures were repressed, and they were taught to be ashamed of their language. That didn't happen in Mexico. Instead, what happened is people either didn't go to school or they went to school for just a little while.
That lack of formal education is likely what has kept the Kumeyaay language alive until now in Baja. Norma and Yolanda Mesa Calles only went to school for a few years as children. Norma, the elder of the two, didn't learn Spanish until she was 13. Now, as adults, their rare expertise in their own endangered language and culture has made them teachers.
Hola. ¿Cómo están? Okay.
The sisters meet regularly with Field to help her document Kumeyaay.
Tengo aquí animales ni mascotas.
Okay. It's a painstakingly slow process. Today, 3 of the Mesa Calles sisters are going over just a few sentences of a Kumeyaay creation story they recorded.
For me, the most important part is getting the every morpheme on every word. So every little piece of a word, every pedacito de palabra para mí es lo más importante.
Field and other linguists are building a dictionary of all 5 dialects of Kumeyaay spoken in Baja California, and they're transcribing and recording stories, conversations, really any type of speech in Kumeyaay, and archiving it.
Collecting and saving examples of language for any future purposes, and a lot of it, we can't even imagine what those purposes might be today.
Documenting an endangered language is one thing. Revitalizing the language, bringing it back from the brink of extinction, is more challenging. Field helped create online Kumeyaay lessons for Baja school teachers. But the real work is largely up to native speakers, like the Mesa Calles sisters.
Language revitalization, the place where it works the best is at home, not in the classroom.
Yolanda brings her grandkids home with her on weekends and during vacations to teach them Kumeyaay. Her sister Norma is also teaching her grandkids the language, along with the customs and rituals that define Kumeyaay culture. Norma says she's putting all of her efforts into making her 6-year-old grandson, Matt, fluent in Kumeyaay. She says, I want to make up for not making my own kids speak the language. Matt doesn't speak much Kumeyaay yet, but if Norma succeeds in making him fluent, it'll then be his turn to keep the language alive and eventually pass it on to his own children. Jill Replogle, KPBS News.